Welcome to Monday Night Live in Lexington. My name is Kathryn Kaufman, and I'm a psychic medium here in Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome to my every Monday night show. This is where we discuss what and who we are in this journey called life. We also go over a lot of paranormal topics on the show. And so what I do is we talk about all this stuff on Monday nights, and then all of these episodes are put onto my YouTube channel. And if I have a client that comes in for a reading and they need to know some kind of information, because there's only 60 minutes in a session, what I do is I give them the YouTube videos that are informational to watch. So let's do some quick shout outs here. Hey to James Shelton, Trina, big kiss to Melissa Begley and Miss Cleo, two of my favorite girls, Samantha Taylor, Rebecca, Trina, hey to Trina, David, and Teresa Cavero. Hey to all you guys over here on Instagram. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions about the material tonight, just put it in the comments section, and I promise I will get to those questions as soon as possible. For those of you that are on my professional page, I did leave a link for you on the page if you want to join in on the live chat. I only look at the live chat on my personal page, so all you have to do is hit the link and come over here to the personal page and you know, ask a question or give your experience with elementals, because elementals is what we're talking about tonight. Before we get off on our topic, I want to send healing out to a friend of mine who just had surgery this morning in St. Louis. I'm sending healing energy to you. You know who you are, and things are looking up, so have some hope. Everything's going to be okay. Now, elementals. Do any of you guys know what an elemental is? Hey to Barbara Bacon, and hey to Linda over here on Instagram. Anybody know or have any experience with elementals? And the reason I wanted to bring them up this evening is because spring is a very big problematic time in dealing with elementals, and we're going to go over exactly why and what they do to cause havoc or wreak havoc on your home. Hey to Teresa back. A shout out to Rebecca at Rhode Island. What is the weather like up there, Rebecca? Hey to Nancy. Yes, Trina, Fae are one of the elementals, and they're in the actual, Earth elemental classification, and we'll get into that. But the definition of an element, because that's it kind of helps you understand a little bit more about elementals if we break it down into element. Hey to Lana Lorraine. An element is part of something, an essential characteristic of any of the four substances such as air, water, fire, and earth, composing our physical dense environment. So it is a part of something, which means that the elemental and the element are both part of each other. So one cannot exist without the other. They have to have each other. These entities or beings can be especially troublesome in the spring, and it is due to the rise of the earth energy and the reawakening of the vibration and the resonance of all the plants and the running waters that spring brings, the storms and the air and all of that gets a rise to the elementals. It catalyzes them into action, so to speak. So the elements of earth are the building blocks of nature, and that is the earth, water, fire, and air. Now, this was addressed by Paracelsus in the 16th century, and he identified mythological beings as belonging to one of these four elements. He wrote in his book to describe the creatures that are outside the cognizance of light nature. In other words, we can't see them, although sometimes they do alter their resonance to where you can see them, but normally you cannot. How they are understood is a creation of God and a divine object, but they do exist at a different resonant level than we do, and that is why we cannot normally see them unless they alter their frequency to where we can perceive them. Now, the belief in these creatures goes back centuries and centuries, and the Shinto religion does work with nature spirits. So if you want to study a little bit more about that, just put a message in the comments and we can do a show about Shintoism if you are interested in it. Hey to Lacey, Lana. So Rebecca says cold and windy today, but sunny. That's awesome, Rebecca. Hopefully spring is on the way up to Rhode Island there. Hey to Mindy, Soleil, Lyric, Gina, Sharon. Special shout out to Jen Oliver, the worldly traveler. And I'm always living vicariously through Jen's pictures on Facebook about where they're going lately. So that's pretty fun. Hey to Jennifer, Melanice, Megan, Christopher, Margaret, and Sheila. And you guys on Instagram, if you have any questions too, just drop them in the comments. I'll see if I can't get to those too. Okay, so every society on the planet has some kind of folklore in their history about small, diminutive, humanoid type of creatures or unseen spirits of nature. Every single society, no matter how isolated the society is, they have this folklore, which lends to the credence of the existence of these type of creatures. And I have seen much evidence of these type of creatures. If you have clairvoyant abilities, you definitely can see them and communicate with them and come to agreements with them sometimes. Now, they reside in and are actually assisting and connected to the element that they are associated with. So what they do with their resonant energy is their resonant energy is overlaid on top of the element of either earth, air, water, or fire. Most often it can be easily seen in the earth element as an image on a tree, because dryads are considered spirits of earth, as are the gnomes. And you can see the formation in the rock. Now, the formation in the tree or the boulders is not the actual elemental spirit. What has happened is the elemental spirit's frequency or resonance has altered the shape of the object, but their energy is overlaid on the top of it, and they can move to a different boulder or a different tree at will. So what you're seeing is simply the residual imprint of the energy on the tree or on the boulder. Let me check for questions. Gina, I just answered that. How about that? Isn't that psychic? I didn't see what you were asking, but yes, if you're clairvoyant, you can see them, and clairaudient, you can hear them. And so what you're doing, Gina, is you're just altering your brain wave frequency to their frequency level. And that way they can't avoid you seeing them. Now, if they really don't want you to see them, they can alter their frequency to where you can't. But it does take them off guard if you're clairvoyant or telepathic and you can see them. So let me check for any more questions. Hey to Megan. Let's see. Hey to Lily and Paige Denise. Thanks for joining us this evening. And hello to Make the Soul over here on Instagram. Okay, so they are attached to their connected element. And here's the key, especially if you're having trouble with any of these entities, please remember this, and I'm going to give you a reference at the end of the show that may help, is these entities are ruled over by devas and by the archangels. Now, the devas are heavenly divine deities. They're referred to in Shintoistic and Hindu doctrines, and the concepts are of sort of deity status. In this hemisphere, I don't deal with the devas as much. They are referred to a lot from Findhorn. If any of you guys are from my era, 1960s, 1970s, you may have heard about Findhorn. If you haven't and you want to know more about fairies, devas, and nature spirits, go to findhorn.com and read about this place over in Scotland that they have. Let's see. Gina says, what about fairies? Fairies are considered this part of the spirits of earth, except for the classification that are considered sylphs. Do fairies get along with elementals? Now this, how about that? No one gets along with anybody really well. Within the element, these beings may get along to a certain degree, but they're classic for always warring and fighting amongst each other. And, you know, they're kind of like humans, you know. Think of it as a big apartment building, and if somebody encroaches on somebody else's space, then you have a little bit of a war or a fight. And so, especially in a lot of the Irish folklore, they refer to the war between a lot of the fairy groups. And that's really interesting reading. So let's go over the 4 element classifications. The earth spirits are considered gnomes, elves, goblins, brownies, bogles, imps, wood nymphs, dryads, stone beings, and the crystal beings. Now, this is just a small smattering of the earth elemental classification or group. There are many, many more, but I would be here all night trying to tell you about these things. The next classification are the undines, and these are spirit beings of the water element. So some of these can be noticed through waves. Waves will be abnormal, and they say that these abnormal waves contain the spirit of the undine. So some of the most classic undines are water babies, and there's a lot of Native American folklore, especially in California, that refer to the dangerous beings of the water babies. And we're going to go into the water babies and the undines next Monday night in more detail. But water sprites, kelpies, mermaids, and mermen are all in the classification of undines. Melissa says, impish behavior. Yes, impish behavior, and that's kind of how that definition got started, is being an imp or being a problem or being trouble, because elementals are very classic for mischievous natures and causing problems. The next classification of the element of air are the sylphs, S-Y-L-P-H. These can be seen as butterflies or dragonflies. Again, the resonant energy is imprinted over the top of the actual creature. So it will cause the creature to fly in a strange direction in order to get your attention. And they basically are using these butterflies and dragonflies to take over their body and do their bidding, because that resonant energy is just like overlaid over the top of the creature. Hey to Beth Ann and Autumn and Amy. So the last classification, or the element of fire, are the salamanders. Now these are creatures that are actually seen in the flames of fire. So a lot of times, you know, people will take pictures of their campfire, and you can see creatures that have kind of developed out of the flames of the fire, and they're pretty clear. They also classify dragons in this element of the salamander. So again, these beings or creatures and spirits are generally invisible to man, but commonly in the majority of these creatures have humanoid bodies. And I thought that was interesting. Why would they have necessarily a humanoid body? It's also in the text and some of the stuff that I've read, been said that they're more rudimentary type of beings without a soul, and that they try to connect with and mate with humans so that the offspring becomes more like a human or with a soul, or somehow they can attain a soul by connecting with humans. They communicate, again, resonantly, telepathically with people who have clairvoyance. And the reason that they exist as an overlay to the structure of the element is their main thing is they are shapeshifters. So they can shift and change their resonant state to match whatever element they are connected with, or as their element changes, as the element of earth, let's say, changes, maybe the tree that they're existing in is cut down, they can either die with the tree, or they can shape shift and change shape and move to a different tree. So let's see, Gina says, would smoke be more air or fire? Ooh, that's a good question, Gina. I would say it would be more probably associated with fire, because it's a product of the fire. And the sylphs are products of air, spirits of air. So I think it would probably be more a product of the fire, maybe influenced by the sylph. So tonight, what we're basically going to talk about, and I hope I've got time to go over all this, because gnomes are a huge problem in the spring. These are classified as little men, 1 to 3 feet tall. More of the stuff that I've read is 1 to 1.5 foot tall. I think 3 feet is on the edge of being too tall, but they're small, humanoid in appearance. They classically live underground or in places like groundhog burrows or under large boulders. They're also called earth dwellers, and they're able to transmute their energy through the earth or through the stone. Classically, they're reluctant to interact with humans, although if you, like I said, if you have clairvoyant abilities or clairaudient abilities, they will appear to you, or you'll be able to perceive them anyway. Another thing is, if they want to intimidate you or threaten you, then they will show themselves to you. So let's see, Laura says, since my element is fire, is that why I'm drawn to dragons? Absolutely, Laura. That is why you're drawn to dragons. I also have a dragon that comes to me in my astral travels. That's really cool, because you can establish a relationship with that and work with it really well for the future. Hey to Connie and Christina. So if they want to threaten you, they will show themselves to you. Folklore states that they guard mines and precious gemstones, so that kind of mimics dwarves. And we're going to get into dwarves in a little bit. Now, the 19th century, they were interchangeable with other terms such as brownies or goblins. But if you read closer in the literature, brownies and goblins are totally different entities than the gnomes. And the gnomes were the only ones that I found that were really detrimental in spring, specifically because they are very territorial. In springtime, humans will tear up the ground and start planting and moving things and clearing all the brush out. And you know what? That doesn't go over very well. And so classically, gnomes will fight back. They will trash stuff, they'll break stuff, they'll rip the plants up out of the garden, and they will just wreak holy terror in the spring. And we're going to go over, before I stop the show, on what you can do, because sometimes this can, be very costly for a lot of people. They have been portrayed in the past as ugly, hot-tempered, wild hair, round body, spindly legs, long beards, and hoarders of metallic objects. So if you have garden tools that are bright and shiny metal and they keep disappearing, guess what? You have one of these, especially if things are getting trashed and torn up. So Beverly says, how do you know your element? Now, well, okay. So your element can be determined by an acupuncturist. Acupuncturists can analyze your body and your physical makeup and tell you what element you are. And that's probably the best way to find out what your true element is. So I would find and see an acupuncturist. Now, in Lexington, I refer people to Blue Lotus Acupuncture, and they would be glad to help you out with that. Hey to Dana. So now, after World War II, these gnomes were introduced as lawn ornaments. Why was that? Well, in the 1930s, Disney had a portrayal of gnomes in their Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And so after that, they were then made into lawn ornaments, and we classically kind of associated them with garden gnomes or gnome ornaments. But the earliest that I could find about garden gnomes went back to Roman times, where they had small stone statues that were used as fertility god representations. And so I think they kind of took that after World War II and made it into the garden gnome, is what I figure. Also in the 1700s, they did have some gnome-like statues, and they were made of either wood or porcelain, and they were called house dwarves. And they were used as house decorations by really rich and that type of families. So the gnomes can be extremely malevolent during spring. And what can we do about this? Well, remember back to, Gina said, I need some gnomes to rip up some plants for me. I don't know if I would want to make one mad enough to do that, Gina. You might get some more trouble other than just some ripped up plants. Hey, to Wendy and Ted. So for the most part, gnomes can be benevolent, except in times when they feel like you're encroaching on their space, or you've altered the energy of the area that they're existing in. And then it's sort of like you're accidentally in their home. We don't realize that. So when you go out to make a garden or to change the landscape in any way, try to use your clairvoyant or clairsentient abilities to canvas for these type of creatures, and maybe respect their part of the space and maybe not encroach on it so much. Now, what can we do about these things? Because we just got a couple more minutes. Remember back to the beginning of the show, we said that they are ruled by devas and archangels. Now, How do the archangels control the elements? Well, the archangels are actually, they control the element themselves. So the archangels control air, fire, water, and earth. And because the elementals are intertwined with these elements, they're a part of, they're an element of the element. Because they're a part of this, thereby the archangels automatically have like a magical control over these elementals. So let's see, Sheila says, have always been fascinated with fairies. If you have a fairy garden and you move and take the fairy garden with you, will the same fairies come to it? Definitely, if you invite them, you do have to create a transport for the energy and invite them to bond with it and assure them that you will take care of them and put them in a good place. Now, they may not like where you put them, and they may, just abdicate it, and that's a risk that you take. But if you've really bonded with them, and it's usually, you could get a huge basket and put some natural moss and gemstones and some flowers and stuff in there, and invite them to bond with that energy so that you can transport them to the other area. So Gina says, I need you to have you on my show. Yes, we need to talk. Barbara says, crystals have been used in gardens and plants to give thanks and gratitude to the elementals. Absolutely, Barbara. And if you would love to type in the comments some suggestions on good crystals or gemstones to use for that, I'm sure the audience would love to hear about that. So how can we use the energy of archangels to help us with a gnome gone wild? Well, I do have a Pinterest board. One of my boards, and it's a public board, is the archangel sigils and symbols. So what you would do is to use these archangel sigils or symbols in the area of the activity. So let's say you have a garden path and it's dirt and things have been chaotic and ripped out and stolen and broken. What I would do is take a patch of sand and draw the sigil or symbol in that and wait and see what happens. And of course, you're going to, say a prayer to the archangel that is governing over that element. You're going to ask that it control this entity and calm it and make it cooperative to work with you to make the place peaceful. So the archangels that govern over the elements, Raphael governs over the air element, and Raphael's mainly concerned with spirit and healing. Michael is governing over the fire element, and that archangel is concerned with courage and truth. Gabriel governs over the water element, and their main energy is emotions and flow. And Uriel governs over the earth element, and that energy is practical and earthy. So again, if you want to see the sigils and the symbols, they're on my Pinterest board, and it's just under Kathryn Kaufman, and it's a public board for you, and you can go in and look at these sigils and print them out and use them in accordance with prayer. Of course, you're going to use both of those together to try to create a calm environment. But now, some of the earth elementals don't respond well to the sigils. In that case, you have to use an iron implement like a horseshoe or an iron star, and you're going to put it in the area of the activity, and that is a huge repellent for elementals from earth. And so next week we're going to go over the undines, and specifically we're going to start with the water babies, because they're the most really malevolent beings of the water element, and they're the most dangerous. And so We've seen a lot of Native American folklore, specifically that address the water babies. And it's, you know, when they cry, it's sort of like the Irish banshee, uh, as an omen of death. When you hear the banshee cry, it's an omen of death. When you hear a water baby cry, it's the same thing. But there are other horrible things that happen with water babies that we're going to go over next week. And so stay tuned for that. You guys have a fabulous week. If you like these shows on Monday night, go ahead and hit that share button right now and share this out on your feed. It does help me a lot. And for those of you that want to watch past shows, I invite you to go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Hit the bell notifications so that you get updated on all the new videos that come out. And until next Monday night, I will see you later. You guys have a fabulous week. Kisses from Kentucky. Bye, guys.